Hello and welcome to another video. So today I want to set up a Google Tag Manager server-side container via the manual way, not through the automatic way, how Google Tag Manager offers as well, but it's really through the manual way. And why? Because we want to make sure that our server location, our Google Cloud Platform server location, is in the EU, for example, in Zurich or Berlin or Belgium or whatever the locations are. Why do we want to do that? The main reason for it is that we want to ensure that our data is actually, processed within the European Union and therefore also being GDPR compliant and due to privacy laws to future-proof our setup. It may not be a big issue at this stage, but for some instances it may be. So the best way is to actually choose a EU server location, or for example, if you are in Asia or Africa, or choose a Australia or whatnot, then you might want to do that also in the region where you live, and also want to do that for speed or for server-side speed issues, perhaps, right? So how do we do it? Let's dive right into it. Okay, so we have quite a few things to go through here. So our first step will be, so we are here in our client-side GTM container for Zodiac, right? So I will head over to this screen here, basically where I log into my client Zodiac account. And as you can see, we only have the web container set up. So I will click on those three dots. I will create a container. I will say, this is my server container, and I will call it server Zodiac. We'll also make this a little bit smaller. Okay, cool. And now we want to select server and create this container. By the way, if you F it up in terms of creating this container, you can always delete it. So there's no harm in doing that. Okay, and now we, as you can see, we don't want to use the automatically provision tagging server, but we want to use the manually provision tagging server, which gives us the capability of choosing the server location. So we will go to manually. We also have our container configuration token down here. We will copy that, and I will actually add that to a separate document, like in a notepad or text edit file, if you want to make, right? Okay. We will need it later on. Okay, so now the issue is we are having our server-side container here, but it's not connected to anything, right? Not to our Google Cloud Platform, because we chose manual setup. So what do we have to do? From a logic perspective, we have to actually create it right now. For that, we will head over to our Google Cloud console, and we will select a project here. And I just blurred them out. As you can see, we have a few setups already in here, projects in here. And now I will create a new project. So we will name this GTM server side for Zodiac. Okay. I hope I don't have this name already. Let me just put an underscore here. Or let's do that. Zodiac signs. Okay. So we will create this. Now it just takes a little bit and then I'll be back. Okay, and as you can see, it created this GTM server-side Zodiac Science instance here with the following ID. And that's what we want, right? So we can actually log into that now. And now the magic starts to happen. Not quite right, not quite now, but yeah, soon enough. So what do we have to do here now? So first of all, when you automatically set up a server, then, usually two instances are created. I think in the past it was actually just one, but now there are two instances created. And basically what we will do here in our setup is we will replicate what is being done automatically, although it's not quite the same. So I have tested that, and some of the parameters are slightly different. So, and that's exactly the hard part to figure out. But anyhow, let's dive into it. First of all, we will go to the burger menu, right? Billing, also, you have to set that up to actually utilize your server-side environment. So if you don't have a billing details there yet, then you can do that right now or do it later, okay? So we will head over to Cloud Run. And as you can see here now, nothing is created. So what we will have to do now is we will have to deploy a new container. And That's what we're going to start. Deploy one revision from an existing container image. That's what we will be doing. And we will use a container image URL. The container image URL is given or is provided by Google Cloud Platform, and it is always the same one. And it is exactly this here. As you can see, GTM Cloud Image Stable. You could change this at the back here, the stable, to a specific value, but this actually ensures that it will always adjust accordingly to other settings. So I usually go with that. Then we have our GTM Cloud image, which I'll leave here like it is. Europe West, so Belgium, is selected automatically. I'm going to go with that as well because I think this is a good location for me anyway. And then we have our endpoint URL here created already. As you can see here, this will be really important. I will actually copy this already, and I will let me just change something before I do that. Let me just change that to preview here. I also recommend that to you, so it will be easier to read which instance is the preview one and which one is the production one. I do it this way. You don't have to. I will copy this. You could potentially also even leave it, actually. But yeah, let's just go ahead like that. I do it this way. You don't have to. Then allow public access. We have to choose that so that we can actually utilize this, right? And we do not want to have a authentication here. Then we will have our billing selected to request based, because charged only when processing requests. CPO is limited outside of requests, which is good because you pay way less. So you could easily spend a lot of money on an instance-based setup, billing setup. Do this. Even I tested that myself. Like in a given month, I probably spent like $35 or $30. When I used request-based, I spent $1 or $2. So it totally makes sense. Auto scaling, keep it as a minimum, as 0, unless you always want to have your server running constantly. As you can see here, set to 1 to reduce the cold starts. So there is some advantages of setting it to 1, because your server always goes kind of like in idle mode. It relaxes. It's kind of like, oop, I'm on vacation. If somebody enters the website, the server has to spin up, so to speak. And it can be that you miss a little bit of data, but I don't really see for a small traffic site really issues on that. And I haven't seen any issues. So you could choose 1, possibly for a larger site, makes maybe more sense. But I choose 0 here, and I put other measures in place. So I'm actually ensuring that I track as much as possible. So the ingress, we will keep allow all, allow direct access to your service from the internet, right? We don't want to make an internal network or intranet or something for a company. We want to have everybody being able to access that. Okay. So what else we got? This is actually not important. Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, that is actually important. Yeah. So further down here, containers, volumes, network security, right? The container portal is being chosen automatically. We will have to add variables and secrets here. This is basically where the magic happens in manual setup. So if you go there now, nothing is set up here, no environment variables, but we will have to set them. But before, I want to just have a quick look at all the rest here in case something pops up. Okay. Yeah, this is okay. I'm not going to attach anything. So this is quite a new feature, actually. I'm not going to do that. Doesn't make sense for a small business or for a small traffic website. Then here, request timeout doesn't really matter what you choose here. This is also about requests and not about instances. So further up here, the request-based billing is that, and this is something else down here. I've let it like that, time within which a response must be returned. I didn't really care about that. The default settings are just fine. Execution environment will be default. Cloud Run will select a suitable execution environment for you. That's what I want. Revision scaling, not going to touch that. And then here, startup CPU boost. That can make sense, I believe. Start containers faster by allocating more CPU during startup time. which makes sense, right? To start the container faster. It will add a little bit to the billing perhaps, but that's a marginal, that's not much. So I'm going to go with startup CPU boost. And now I will not create the instance yet. I will go into my variables section as mentioned before, and we will have to add in a few things here. So as mentioned before, this is the preview environment. So as you can see here, can you still see that here? Here, yeah, I've put it here, preview, right? So I know which environment I'm actually looking at. And what we have to do here is that why I'm also adding this preview in here, we will need to add a variable, right? Or actually a few variables to make this work. Okay, so the first one would be, in this case, let me just think, they are the container configuration. We have to set this. So the interesting thing is it's all in capitals here. Container config. Okay, that's kind of the naming convention that you have to use. If you use something else, it won't work. And then the value is exactly what we actually created here in our server-side instance, which I actually copied before, but I'll go in there once more, sorry, on the workspace, and then up here in the ID, and then manually provision tagging server. We can now use this. I will copy this and I will add it here as a value. Okay, that's the first step, important step. And then as a second step, what we will have to do is we will have to tell our setup basically that we are running this as a preview server. Okay, because this is the preview mode kind of that we are choosing, right? And we will select it as true in lowercase. And then we will also add a third value. I believe you don't necessarily have to do that, but if you don't add it, you will see quite a few errors in your console and requests will be blocked. So I would suggest doing that. And here we want to basically have all instances to come in. So we will choose an asterisk. Okay, so this is all we have to do from this side. We will now create this instance. It takes a little bit, or actually not that much, right? And it's now spinning up and actually checking if everything is all right and if it will be active or not. So let's just wait. So it completed the service, it completed creating the revision, and now the routing traffic is being done as well. Let me just post this quickly until it's done. Okay, cool. So this took probably 1 or 2 minutes or so to finish off. So as you can see, routing traffic is also completed. So that's a first thumbs up. Okay, but we're not done yet. So what we have to do as the next step is basically create another server tagging instance. So we will go back here. And as you can see, we got our GTM Cloud Image Preview here now. And what we will do now, this is the beautiful thing, right? Our region is Europe West. So it's in the European Union, and that's really good in terms of GDPR compliance issues and also privacy laws, etc. Right? So we will deploy another container, or we could also just duplicate this one. I will start from scratch and deploy another container. We'll do the same setup basically. So we will have to choose a container image URL as before. So we will select that and we will enter it. We will name this one here production Europe West, again the same location. This is our endpoint URL. I will also copy this one here because we will have to use it soonish anyway. We just put that here. Okay, so what else do we have to do? Yeah, let's just hit down, allow public access. We will do that. Request based is fine. Auto scaling 0 as well. We will leave that and then all in here. And now here, down here, the magic happens again. So the container port, we will just keep it. That's okay, right? But the variables and the secrets, we have to add something into here. So first of all, we will add, let me just think also, yeah, we will do the container, the container configuration file first, container config, right? Oops, lowercase here, container config. And then the value, we will pick it again from here, copy this, put it into here. So this is always the same, right? The container configuration on the server, on the preview, and the production will be the same, okay? Then we will add a variable, okay? And we will now, again, as before, need to add a server URL. And in this case, it will be the real server URL, okay? But it will be the server URL. And this is important. Pay attention to that, okay? Because that tripped me up for some reason. The previous server URL will be the previous server URL from the previous server, not from the production server, which kind of makes sense, right? So it won't be this URL, the production URL. It will be the not this one. No. It will be it will be the preview URL, okay? So I just pasted it somewhere here in my notepad. Let me just see where it is. Yeah, here it is. Let me just pick that and I will add that into here, okay? As you can see here, it then contains this preview in here. And then we will add another variable, okay? This is actually important as well to add because I believe without that, it may not work. Let me just see where I have put it. Yes, okay. For this one here, let me just see. Yes. Correct. So what I have added in here is now the root domain. Okay. So in your case, your root domain has to go here. And the element, as before, is the course allow origin. Okay. So we'll add that into here as well. Okay. And that should be it. Down here, the settings, we don't touch that. We actually had a look at that startup CPU boost. I will keep for now as well. You don't have to. You can also do a little trick here. I actually haven't tested what is kind of like cheaper. But I think this is actually a good option. Startup CPU boost, or you could also set up a cloud scheduler, right? So you always keep it on, how should I say, always on kind of, so that you remove or limit cold starts. So it's not entirely on, but every 5 minutes it kind of gears up or actually presses on the gas and, kind of goes in a listening state. But I have another video for that. So if you just check out my channel, I think it's called Google Tag Manager server-side setup or something, and there I talk about that as well. Okay, so we will create this instance, this production instance. I will pause this again and we'll be back in a second. Okay, that was pretty fast, right? So we got our production URL here. I will just add that to my I did that anyway before, right? So all good. So from this perspective, from our manual Google Cloud Platform setup, we are actually more or less done. Isn't it beautiful? I mean, a few things to change here. You got your server location to Europe or whatever you need, right? And basically we have to keep on working now in Google Tag Manager again. So we will head back into Google Tag Manager. So we have set it up, right? Which is awesome. I will refresh this just to make sure certain things come through. Just click into here. Okay, all good. So what we have to do here now is, first of all, we have to go into our admin section. We will go to the container settings and we will now add our server container URL. Okay, so we will go to add URL and I will have a look at my production server URL that I just created and I will add that into here. As you can see here, this is for the production server Zodiac. That's all good. And when I save this, this will change this interface, as you will see in a second. So if I go in here again, as you can see here now, the container configuration, which is actually a good thing actually to see that, because it actually tells us that actually this container config was used and is kind of linked with that, right? That's the container configuration that we actually used here in that manual side of things. So if you would see an error here or something, then something is not quite right. Okay, so next step, what do we have to do? So within our server-side GTM, we have to now create some of the tags, right? So, so what do we have to create here? We have to go into our server account again, right? Which we will do. And we will set up the tags here, right? We need some tags and we will also need to basically connect the client-side GTM with the server. Maybe we do that actually first, because we just started that. Therefore, I headed over to my client-side environment, right? And here, as you can see, I got this GA4 config tag. I will go into that. And here, as you can see, I have not connected now this client-side GTM with the server-side GTM, right? As you probably still know, we have to now link client-side with the server side, so they talk with each other. And how we do it in a way to utilize a so-called server container URL, which is exactly container URL. And as mentioned, we will link this to the production URL. So I just have to have a look where I have it stored. Where's my production URL? I got it here, and I will add that into here. As you can see, it's the production one, and nothing else really required here. We will save that. You, I'm assuming, already have this GA4 config tag set up already, because I believe the client side of things you have managed already. Therefore, I won't go into details. If you need more insights or explanations for certain things here, like the GA4 config tag, please check out my channel as well, where I talk about these things like Google Tag Manager, server-side setup, or Google Consent Mode, where I also go into that a bit deeper. Okay, as a next step, now we connected these two. Now we have to actually look into our tag again, right? Because at the moment, what we have done now is we have established a connection between client side and server side. We could actually preview this as well here to actually see if the request URL is coming through or not. So first of all, this is the page, right? And if you go to inspect here, you will see under network, and if we kind of refresh this, we should actually see a collect request come through. Correct. As you can see already, which is a good sign, the request URL is actually utilizing already the server URL, the production one, as you can see here, which is awesome. Production, right? And this is exactly how it should look like. We have a 200 OK here, which means actually our server side manual setup actually is correct. If you would see a 400 here or 500 or whatever it is, and this being red, right, or cancelled or blocked, then you would have an issue here. But in our case, it looks all good. So this is a confirmation that we're on the right track, so to speak. Next step. Step will be going into our, not into here, we actually can close that again. It's not that relevant at this stage. We will go into our tag, in our server-side tag. So now here you have to think about the following thing. We have our client-side GTM setup. We are linking it through the production URL of our server, cloud platform server URL, to our server, right? And now this data down here, for example, the GA4 data, right, that we collect here, we want to have this over here, right? So this client here will be the incoming request, kind of the pipeline into the server side. And here we have to kind of catch it. Okay, so this GA4 tag is automatically created by it, which is probably anyway the best way to do it in this case. I'm just going to check the data. Yeah, okay, this all looks very good. That looks all good. I sometimes name it like that, and I'll do that in this case as well, just for my sanity, I guess. Okay, cool. So we got our GA4 web client that basically now grabs these incoming requests, right, from the client. Says clients here, right? So it comes from the client, it grabs these, and now it basically, we have these requests available in our server, and now just the tags that we will set up, they will now hand these over to either Google Analytics, Meta, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever it is, right? So of course, we also need to set up some tags here. And of course, that's up to you what you want to set up here, but we will just set up the base tag. To do here is I like to go to new. I like to call this all GA4 events. Quite a few people actually do it in a similar way. We will use Google Analytics and then the GA4 environment, basically, right? And of course, we have to set up the measurement ID, right? Which in my case is this. You probably know where to find that. So if you go into your analytics, then you go to your data streams. So you go to admin, you go to data streams. Where's it? Let's do it again. Data streams, admin data streams. Then you go to your URL, and then you got your measurement ID here. You copy that and you put it into your server side thing here. You could also create a constant variable for that. I'm not going to do it here. It doesn't really matter. It's just for illustration purposes, but you could go ahead here, use that plus, use another plus, click onto here, use constant, add your value into here. and call it GA4 measurement ID up here. Okay, I'm not going to do that in this case, but this is what I would suggest otherwise. So that's okay, right? So we have set this up, all GA4 events. Now the trigger is very important here. So what do we want to do with the trigger? So basically with the trigger, we want to now catch all of the GA4 events. That way we also called it like that, right? All the incoming events that come in from our client side, we want to now catch here from the client, basically, right? We want to pick it up from the client. So we will go to the plus here, we will go to trigger configuration, custom event, and here's the event name. We will just mark it as a dot and an asterisk. So meaning that we will pick up any event that comes in, some custom events, and here we will use, this is already pre-built, should actually be in here if we search for it, like the client name. I'm not sure. Choose built-in variable. Client name. That's how you do it. And then contains is of course important here as well. And this will be exactly the name of my GA4 web client, right? As you saw before, it was named GA4 before. I renamed it to GA4 web client, just so it's more clear for me what I'm actually looking at. And up here, the trigger, we can name it. Then up here in the name, I will just call it all GA4 web client for the trigger. Okay, so this is the all GA4 events tag. I will save that. Okay, cool. So we have set that up. So in essence, we should now pick up all the events. So if we want to try that now, we will actually preview this. Connect. Okay, it's fired. Okay, so we got some tags that fired here. So we are actually consenting to everything in here. So as you can see here as well, it's all consented to. And then we will actually launch our server-side preview mode, and hopefully a request comes through here. If not, we may have a problem. Awesome. So as you can see here, the request came through in our summary tab. Why do we have this not as fired? So first of all, request. So we have this user engagement, then we have a page view here. Let me just check that real quick. Oops, I vanished as well. Okay, I do think I know what the issue is. I actually made a mistake with GA4 tag. So that's actually the GA4 tag, right? Not in here actually. Doesn't really matter. Let me just discard the change for a sec. So this is actually my GA4 tag, and this down here is all GA4 events. That's how I usually do it. And then down here, I think the mistake is because I actually chose client name contains, but that should be equals actually. So let me just save that. Let's see if that actually works now. Save. Okay, let me just close that. So it went through, but it didn't actually fire correctly. So let me just see what happened here. So let's preview this once more. Okay, previewed. Yep, okay, this fired again. And now let's preview these. Page view tag not fired again. This is, see, so as you can see, the incoming HTTP request from the client is here. Then our client within server side claimed this request, but the tag didn't fire. Why did it not fire? Because we are allowing everything. Just have another look at this real quick. All right, I forgot something else. Sorry about that. Use regex matching, of course. I have to use that, otherwise this rule doesn't do anything, right? Or almost nothing. So let's save that. That must be the culprit. Let's just see if that works now. Let's just cancel out on here. Let's close that. Okay, let's try this again. Let's go to preview. Let's connect this. Okay, and then let's also preview this, and hopefully it works now. That's it. Okay, all good. That makes sense. So the tag fired now, as you can see, the page view tag as well, and user engagement fires almost every time anyway when you do something on the page. The good thing is it's all working, and isn't that beautiful actually? So if you think about it, now we've set this up. So if you go to this inspect here again, we can still see, of course, that the request came through. Let's just refresh. This is the user engagement one, which is usually, as you can see, user engagement is usually cancelled. And then out here, we can see again, the production works. We got all our settings in here. Of course, there's much more to this, right, that you can check. One more thing that we want to check actually is our Google Analytics and actually if the events come through here as well. So let's just go in the reports, or maybe let's do it in the admin section and then to the debug view. So we'll go to admin and then debug view. Just want to see if the events come through here as well. Nice. Page view, user engagement. Awesome, right? Some details in here. So that all seems to link up. The good thing is we know now that these requests came in through the server, right? So of course they could have come in from the client as well directly, like from the client GTM, right? Then this wouldn't be proving anything. But as we saw before, when we checked the URL down here or the request URL, we saw that it's actually coming through the server, right? Which is exactly what we want. I think you can actually see that somewhere as well. You can't really see, it's just Google front end. That's what it's saying here. But I believe that is actually the server environment, the Google Cloud Platform environment, if it says Google front end, but don't quote me on it. Okay, I guess that's it. I mean, was a bit a lengthy video, not too lengthy, I guess. But in essence, that's how you set it up. I hope that helped you, yeah? I would hope for you to subscribe to my channel, like, comment, discuss, whatever you want. I'm helping other guys out here, digital marketers, also GA analysts and experts, but also business owners, that just want to get their tracking set up correctly, that want to maybe do it themselves and don't have the capacity to actually employ somebody for doing it for them. And of course, in terms of the setup, there are more things that you can do. It's not just about this, right? You can set up now, as a next step, you could set up the server-side tracking, custom domains, for example. So you actually, instead of, depict this URL down here, the server URL, which is basically a third-party request, right? So we go in here again. This request that comes through here takes a while, always if you need it. This is kind of like a third-party request because it goes through to the Google server, right? Which can be blocked by ad blockers quite easily. So better to do it through your first party domain, through your own domain. So I vanished again, bye-bye. And there are a few more steps involved in that. And also, how to set up your Google Cloud Console or your backend here in a way that you save as much money as possible. I have a video for that as well in the description. Not in the description in my channel, just check out my channel. It's also around Google Tag Manager server-side full setup or something, the name, where I actually go a little bit deeper into that and actually explain how you can also save money, right? Because Google Tag Manager server-side is not always cheap. It can get costly. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. Subscribe if you like the channel and keep watching, keep learning. Bye-bye.